Tony. Thomas.
Hello.
Hey, sorry, guys.
You're good.
I forgot I'm on California time.
Okay, whenever you're ready to go, we're ready.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll call the Planning Commission meeting for the 19th of January to order. First thing we'll do is announce that there will be no anchor site for this location. The letter can be viewed on the YouTube channel or at the town hall. The second thing we'll do is take attendance. Glynis,
Here.
Rachel,
Here.
Donna,
Here.
Jonathan,
Here.
Brian,
Here.
Tony. Did I forget anybody? I don't think so. Okay, then we'll call a meeting to order. Does anybody have a motion? Does anybody have anything they would like to discuss in reference to last month's minutes that were distributed?
Donna?
Yes, I'm just unmuted. I would like to make a correction or an addition to the minutes concerning the second half of our conversation with Mr. Ensign and the 7.5 acre property that we discussed that he was planning on putting on 10 homes. So we did what was recorded and what was my understanding was that Glynis had suggested, of course, the building pads be staggered to avoid a monotonous appearance, and the density to be reduced by 8 or 9 units. And then I suggested the density be reduced to 6 units. So if we can add that correction in there and that addition, I would appreciate it.
We'll incorporate that and it will be in the approved minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point, Donna, because there was some discussion regarding density, and you also, the commission asked for additional studies before any final density would be determined. So that makes good sense.
Yeah.
In that case, with those changes, I move that we approve the minutes from, what was it, January or December 1st or December, whatever it was. What was the date again? December 1st.
That's right.
December 1st.
I'll second that.
Okay, then we'll take a vote. Glynis,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Tony's a yes. Rachel?
Yes.
Okay, thereby we'll accept the December 1st meeting minutes. Okay, on for discussion and consideration of amending the town's annexation policy plan to include additional acreage in Wasatch County southeast of Hideout. Thomas, do you have you anything that you would like to share with us in regard?
Yeah, why don't I take the time to walk you through the staff report so that we all understand what it is that we're looking at tonight. We're not asking for any votes, any recommendations or anything tonight. Tonight's your initial meeting to hear this discussion regarding the proposed annexation declaration area expansion. And so tonight is an opportunity for you guys, if you have questions, to ask them. It's also an opportunity to hear from affected entities that surround the hideout boundary. And so this is really kind of also an opportunity, if there's additional information that you guys would like us to pursue, to let us know what that is, or if there's something specific that you may want from Benlock. This is not a discussion regarding a Benlock annexation. Keep that in mind. That will be an independent application at a later date if you, as the Planning Commission, send a favorable recommendation to expand to the ADA and the council agrees to do that. That would be a subsequent application. That is a reason for the annexation declaration area expansion, but that is not the subject of tonight's meeting. Specifically, it's a part of it, but tonight's just about expanding the boundary. And so I'll walk you through my staff report quickly, ask questions if you have any as I go through this. And then we'll look at the map as well, and then talk a little bit about the intent and the goals of the general plan, and if an ADA expansion would meet those goals and intent. So again, if you remember, at your December meeting, the town had been approached by Benlock Ranch regarding an interest in annexing into the town of Hideout. The town of Hideout's current ADA boundary does not include Benlock Ranch, which kind of sits on the north side of the Heber City boundary. So for us to consider it, we'd have to expand the boundary. That's what this is about tonight. I outlined some of the Benlock Ranch's the site plan, proposed site plan that they're currently working on. Again, that'll be discussed in detail down the road if we do pursue the ADA expansion. So if you could scroll down to the next page, right, just a little lower. Thanks, Alicia. So yeah, just in terms of scale, and we'll go to the map. You know, right now, Hideout's about 2,500 acres, your current town boundary. Your current ADA boundaries about 10 or 11, and we'll get those exact numbers as we work through this process. We'll pull that from our GIS mapping. So current town size is about 2,500 acres. The Benlock Ranch is about 2,300 acres. Again, that's the potential application that is initiating this ADA expansion. But our overall expansion area would be about 4,000 acres, give or take, 2,300 of which would be incorporated by Benlock Ranch. And again, I'll show you that map in just a second. We've outlined down here, just in terms of affected entities that you may hear from tonight. They might be listening in on the meeting. Affected entities include counties, nearby cities, local jurisdictions such as utility providers, the school districts, water district, et cetera. So they will likely pay attention to the annexation and potentially have questions as well. So we might hear from them tonight. You can go to the next page, Alicia. Let's go to the map. I wonder, can everybody see that okay? I know on Zoom, you guys can kind of go to the top of your screen, hit view options and zoom in if you want. Keep in mind, this is our initial map. Things may tweak a little bit with boundaries. We're working through that, but you can see in the center of that map, the town of Hideout boundary. You'll see it with kind of the green, the beige, the dark green, the light green. Those indicate the zoning districts in the community. So you can see that's the existing boundary, again, about 2,500 acres. You can see the magenta, the kind of purple line that goes all the way around. That is the existing annexation declaration area right now. You can see Alicia, is there a way to allow me to annotate just out of curiosity? I tried to, and I think you have to give me that permission.
I'm not seeing it, but I'll keep trying.
Okay, that's fine. And I'll keep going. If you do see it, just let me know, because I could probably make this a little bit easier by annotating. But you can see the area down below. The text says proposed hideout ADA expansion area. That area, that gray area, and those horizontal lines, that's the area up for discussion tonight. You can see that it is on the boundary, the southern boundary of the existing ADA boundary, and it would go all the way to right, in some places right along the Heber City boundary, and some of those areas may not be in, or might be just unincorporated Wasatch County. But you can see essentially we would be going pretty close to Heber City's boundary in some areas. I can annotate now, so let me just do something. Okay, so again, this is, give me 1 second. That area roughly is the expansion area that we're talking about. You can see that this area here is within the ADA area, ADA boundary, but would need to be annexed. It's already within the boundary, but it would need to be annexed if we were going to annex Benlock Ranch. All of that gray area would ultimately need to be annexed because it has to be contiguous. It has to touch our existing town boundary, not just our ADA boundary. It has to touch our town boundary. So again, that's a next step if we want to annex, but we would have to work with all of the properties in the area that I've crudely outlined. So again, it's a next step, but I just wanted to show you that ultimately the connection for this is right over on the southwest side of the community. Again, any expansion has to be contiguous. So the area in gray is essentially what we're talking about tonight. Do you guys have any questions about the boundary, the mapping, or is there anything that I did not explain clearly? Because I think that's important to make sure we're all on the same page.
Thomas, perhaps you could describe the sandwich area, the middle area that would also have to be annexed in order for these to be contiguous, excuse me. And what exactly is there? I'm looking at the map and I'm not able to visualize personally, my own failing here. I'm not able to visualize what's there, what in the contiguous area in order to do this. If we went forward, what's there?
Most of this is state parkland, actually. So you can see the Jordanelle outline, the lake kind of goes over there. And then there's around that, there is parkland around the lake for the most part, not unlike what we see up on the west side of the town of Hideout. So it's mostly, it'd be connected by way of, it'd be contiguous by way of state parkland.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So are there any other houses or properties in there at all?
We haven't done a full assessment yet, but I don't think there are any, maybe I should say, I think there may be a few. I don't know if there are any specifically in there. And after this meeting, as we continue to move forward, we're going to hone in on detail and really zoom in on it. But right now, I don't think there are.
And
This
is
green
there
area
any-
is parkland. Sorry.
no, that's okay. Is there any area in there other than Benlock that could be used for commercial purposes?
There are these areas right in that area and this area could be used as commercial. There may be a little bit up here on the north. Again, we'll get into much finer detail as we come back to you next month. But that's a good question because I know commercial development is important to the community. It is worth noting that within Benlock Ranch itself, if you remember their presentation to you on December 1st, they do have a commercial component. I think they outlined about 50,000 square feet of commercial, some potential hotel development, et cetera, some recreational amenities, et cetera, were included in that. So there is a commercial component to Benlock Ranch. I know that's important to the community, and it's important for us to work closely with them as that application comes in, assuming the ADA gets expanded, to ensure that commercial is a part of that.
And looking actually at the north end of the magenta boundary, is that the annexation that's, well, no, a little bit more down to the left there, is that the annexation that is in the courts right now?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep, that was the Richardson Flat annexation proposal. That's right.
Hmm.
It is worth noting that some of the area that we are looking at for the expansion of the ADA is, as I said earlier, some of it borders right up to the city of Heber's boundary. This area is also currently within Heber City's ADA boundary. State law allows them to overlap. And so this land is, you know, it's a pretty large area and it's pretty far south of us, but it does have decent connections. Some of the road networks make connection down to the Benlock Ranch relatively easy, but it's a large area and it's a good deal south. And if you guys have questions, we can always come back to the map. I just wanted to make sure the lines were, you know, clear in terms of what they represented. Maybe Alicia, if you can scroll down a little. As I said, you know, by way of disclaimer, some of those lines, those boundaries, we do need to finesse. We need to ensure that we don't create any island of unincorporated land, i.e. land that would just be Wasatch County, but not incorporated in Heber and not incorporated in the town of Hideout. We can't create islands in the between the two entities. You know, peninsulas and various openings are allowed, but there can't be an island trapped in there. All of that land would have to either get annexed, or there would have to be an, you know, kind of an outlet and an opening so that they weren't fully bounded by two jurisdictions. So that is something that we'll look at in detail as we move forward. We don't think there are going to be any of those lands, but something that we'll have to confirm. You scroll down to the next page, Alicia. You know, part of any rezoning process, as you well know, and part of any ADA expansion is that it has to conform to the general plan, to the goals, to the intent of the general plan. And so what I did here is I pulled out the vision statement that is kind of the creed, the fundamental guiding principle for the general plan. And here you can see it is to preserve outstanding views, cultivate inviting neighborhoods, create neighborhood character, and build a connected community. And so as we think about the ADA during the course of this meeting, over the course of the next month and at the next meeting, et cetera, keep that in the back of your mind to ensure that expanding the ADA boundary to the south of the community makes sense in terms of meeting these goals. Part of building the connected community led to what you asked earlier, and that was commercial development, commercial growth, opportunities down there. You can see at the bottom right side of build a connected community is creating space for commercial growth and transportation options. So as we look at ADA expansion, keep all of these kind of in the back of your mind. Alicia, if you scroll down just to the next page, I pulled what I thought were the most applicable goals out of the general plan. There's probably more, but I think these were the most applicable goals. You could see we have some land use goals that are about protecting view sheds and character, annexation goals specifically discussing well-planned, fiscally responsible annexations, protecting the community vision, what we just outlined. If you scroll down just a little bit more, you could see economic goals discussing tax and fiscal responsibility, coordinating with developers, ensuring that commercial uses that are desired by the community are a part of that, could be a part of that. the land uses in that annexation area. And then you'll see housing goals, creating diversity in terms of housing product, quality design, character, aesthetics, and balancing the housing types within the community. If you scroll down a little bit more, I started to walk through these a little bit and do some really quick analysis. And I'll get to that in 1 second. This is actually just worth repeating though. Again, if you choose and council chooses to expand the ADA, based on it meeting the intent, the goals, the vision of the general plan, based on the policies above, you're not obligated to annex Benlock Ranch. That application hasn't come in, again, within the next couple of months. You're not obligated to, but this allows you to consider it. If you don't have the expansion of the ADA, you can't consider annexing Benlock Ranch because it is not within your boundary. You wouldn't have jurisdictional authority to do so. That just worth repeating that, again, it doesn't obligate you. If you scroll up, again, this is the development summary that they presented to you on December 1st. So you can kind of see on the left-hand side, there's pretty good diversity of residential products, some single-family home, townhouses, condos, casitas, different square footage types. You can get into the hospitality section, which is, kind of that crossover between commercial and residential, some cabins, resort, for rent opportunities. Those would likely be short-term rentals. That's also something worth considering from a commercial perspective, a taxing perspective. And then at the bottom, you can see the golf course, lodge, commercial development, boutique grocery store, kids branch, storage units, workout studio, etc., that are proposed as part of the concept plan. And you can see the fourth bullet down, community retail, about 35,000 square feet. So that's currently their proposal. That's worth keeping in the back of your mind as you think about the ADA expansion, just because commercial is so important to you and it's one of your annexation goals. So that kind of gives you a reminder background of what Benlock proposed. If we think about Benlock, because it is the driver of this ADA expansion, again, that's not the focus of tonight, Benlock Ranch, but as a driver of the ADA expansion, you could scroll down just a little, Alicia. I walked through some of go down just to the next page, sorry. I outlined some of the goals that we had pulled from the general plan. And so here you can see the goals with kind of a cursory review of, in this case, what Benlock Ranch would bring. So from preserving view sheds and green space, the concept does include a significant percentage of green space. We don't have exact percentages, just from a visualization on the concept plan, we have a good understanding of what is there, some open spaces, golf course, etc. We would need to go into more detail with that and get a better understanding. That may be information that you ask me to work with Benlock Ranch and their representatives on. Promoting a mix of commercial and residential uses. I just walked through that they do have some recreational proposals, some boutique groceries, some kind of neighborhood commercial that has been discussed and desired by the town over the course of the past few months in different potential rezoning applications, etc. Some housing goals. We outlined this as well in their plan. They do have a diversity of housing. Is it everything that you feel is necessary? We'd probably want to talk a little bit about short-term rentals, what percent is, what percent is not short-term rentals. You can scroll down a little bit more, Alicia. Economic goals. It's worth noting that as part of an annexation, a petition to annex. So assume you make a favorable recommendation next month, the following month, to the council to expand the ADA boundary, and assume council adopts that and forwards and votes to do that. At that time, Benlock Ranch would then submit a petition to annex. Part of a petition to annex includes a fiscal impact study. It's a requirement. We would ask them to do a fiscal impact analysis. They've given us some financials already, and Katie and the EDC team have started to look at those. It's also a requirement that a third-party financial assessment, that a third party complete a financial assessment. That is something that is part of the application fee and requirement for annexation. So that would give us a much better understanding of what the economic benefits and or impacts would be. But they do have a pretty good diversity of recreational commercial proposed in their concept plan, as well as the neighborhood commercial we outlined. You could go down to the next one, Alicia. Also, as part of an ADA expansion, I don't know if you had time to look at the staff report. There's an attachment to the staff report, which is the Hideout annexation declaration area plan. It kind of gives some recommendations for the ADA area, what we would like to see in it. It kind of builds a little bit off the general plan, but it does include these 6 goals: ensuring livability and quality of life, enhancing current utilities, water infrastructure, establishing possible lands area for public institutions, schools, etc., providing adequate recreational facilities, open space protection, recreational amenities. Again, the golf course was one of the proposed amenities in the Benlock Ranch concept plan, enhancing and protecting sensitive lands, and balancing the tax base between housing and other kinds of developments. So indirectly, we've discussed these tonight, but those goals should also be, you as a planning commission should feel comfortable that what we're looking at generally addresses and meets those goals for an ADA expansion. And then I've just got the recommendation for next steps. Tonight, we're really looking at it. It's a public meeting. Affected entities may participate. They may just be listening in. They may have questions. We'll get to that. But the next step would be a public hearing would be held on February 16th by the Planning Commission. If it is a favorable recommendation, then it would go to Town Council and they would hold a public hearing on March 9th. So assuming we maintain schedule, there weren't any hiccups, any issues, requests for information that set us back, etc., that would be the approximate schedule. And then again, the exhibit attached below this is on the next page is the actual ADA plan. And again, I pulled some of the goals from this ADA plan into the staff report. So that was a quick walk through ADA planning. I don't know if you have any questions. Again, we do want to open it up for the public entities tonight to see if they have any questions or requests for input. But that is all I have in terms of a specific presentation, but I am wide open to answer questions. I know Polly's on as well if you have any technical or legal questions.
I have a question. Can we go back to the map real quick? So one of the goals is to potentially put a school in there. I've driven by the Benlock Ranch property before, but I think I went through Camas and then through Francis and then over, but it looks like there might be another road there. How long, I guess what I'm getting at is how long would it take to get from where the community kind of is centralized right now over to an area that might be able to house a school?
That's a good question. We haven't done the analysis or the drive time. Tim may know. I know that Tim is on. I don't know if he's done that, but that was also a concern relative to snow removal, plowing, etc., emergency services. We would have to understand that timing and numbers. But it is, you're right. I mean, to get there, you do have
it's substantial. Yeah, you're right, Thomas. It's pretty substantial to get there from basically town hall over to that part. You're looking at upwards of 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's closer than where kids would go to school in Heber now.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would
Are
love
there
to
any
hear
other questions, council members?
I would love to hear from, Public Works and the town engineering, on their perspectives on this. This is a big potential step. If this were to go through and the annexes were then to follow, this, in my view, would essentially double the size of the town, or could almost double the size of the town. And I'd love to hear from, Public Works and Engineering on their perspectives on that. And they may not be prepared this
Well-
evening, but at some point, I'd really like to hear about that.
Yeah, a great question, Councilman Gunn, and I think I think it all comes back to kind of what we talked about in the kind of the charrette that we had last week with council members, and it just comes down to manpower and equipment, and having some more funding and resources to be able to handle additional expansions and annexations. And so, we realize that it would be a challenge to do. But again, I think once we can get some of those pressing needs under control, we will be able to adequately service. But again, that's what it comes down to. We need to make sure we have the appropriate manpower and equipment and funding to be able to accept some of these areas.
And Tim, it might be worth discussing a little bit just what you and I discussed earlier today, and that is maybe the agreement to annex, if that were to be the case with, say, Benlock Ranch down the road, would be HOA roads maintained by them.
Correct.
Because right now, we as a town don't have that capacity, right?
Yeah, correct. And that would be something that we could definitely, talk and have them maybe come in as a private HOA to where their roads are maintained. But again, as we know, most private roads that after a certain amount of years are usually, they fall apart and they want the town to fix it. And so then all of a sudden it's not private roads anymore, and it turns out to be town or city roads. And so that's kind of what happens in the 10, 15 years down the road. But that is a definite possibility that me and Thomas talked about earlier today. And it would be smart for them to start out that way for sure. But again, that's later on in the discussion, as Thomas had said earlier to the Planning Commission members.
Because my impression is that many of the town's resources are already taxed. And I don't mean financially, I mean stressed and stretched. And if we're going to go forward, it's got to get better and not worse, in my view. And so I would ask that Public Works and Engineering weigh in early and often on their needs and what the requirements are and what the pitfalls and things are, so that we can understand what we're getting into here, because this is potentially a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it really is. And I know that we have a great group of everybody that works with the town, and whether it's our consulting side or even our volunteers that, on Planning Commission and our council members, I know we'll work closely and look at this a little bit more. And but I think it would be good. I mean, again, it just comes down to, for us everywhere, I get emails once a day from, Utah League of Cities and Towns, and everybody's in the same boat. They're trying to desperately find people to fill positions, whether it's even just a maintenance worker, one. And so I think as we, look at this and we get more people and more support, I think this would be a great addition, me personally speaking. But again, it would just be something that, as I look at it from city engineer and public works standpoint, that we just make sure, like you said, we're taxed right now. Everybody knows that. But again, we just want to make sure we get the appropriate resources in place to be able to adequately serve our residents. That's the number one priority for us.
I think we need to hear early and often and repeatedly about what it will take to do that.
I agree. I agree.
Okay,
Are
so,
there any other?
oops,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say if there aren't any, if nobody else wants to ask a question, I'll ask another one. So Toohey is, my understanding, Toohey is not particularly, they don't want to be part of Hideout, which is fine. But where is that boundary that on the right-hand side there parallel with that magenta? And is that the hill coming down? I mean, is that, if I were to look at it, is that a hill going from Toohey down to the magenta line?
Are Glynis, are you talking about along the south line or the far right line, the east line?
The east line.
Over here?
Yes. Well, between there and is that the boundary? Is that light gray line the boundary of Toohey? To the left of that?
Yeah, Toohey doesn't really have a boundary. It's really an HOA that is situated within it's within Wasatch County, so it doesn't have a jurisdictional boundary. It has an HOA boundary. I'm gonna guess, and I don't know this for certain, but I will get this for your next meeting. I'm gonna guess is something like this, I think, where you see most of the development already done, I think.
Yeah.
I can get the
Okay.
boundary for you.
I'm just looking at available areas to do things like schools or grocery stores or, that kind of thing. That's
Okay.
what I'm trying to get a feel for.
Nope, that makes good sense. We'll incorporate that into the next plan. I do think honing in on some of those HOA and state park boundaries will reveal available vacant land opportunities. And, again, then we want to look at sensitive areas, steep sloped areas, because that makes it a little bit harder to develop. So
Right.
we'll narrow it down. Good point.
And Thomas, we discussed previously, don't forget, there's property towards the Camet side of Toohey that is now for sale. It's open land.
And remind me, Tony, do we know if that was in Summit or Wasatch? Because
I believe it's still in that.
okay. Good point then. We'll look at that too.
Oops.
Are there any other questions from any of the commission members? Okay, there being none, then are there any questions from any of the affected entities that might be participating in tonight's meeting?
And I think if you have a question, maybe you can use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And Alicia, I always forget *6 to unmute yourself.
Yeah, if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and then *6 when we tell you you can unmute.
Tony, I think you're on the phone, so I'll watch for you. I don't see any hands raised yet.
Polly, I do have a question for you. Are we also open, is this also open to public comment?
You
Other
can
than-
if you, but can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, you can if you want to, but it's not required. The next meeting will be a public hearing. But, you know, if there is anyone from the public, maybe it's interesting to hear it now. But it's up to you.
Okay. Thomas, I'm going to assume that there's no public entities that are, even if they are listening or participating, have no comment to make at this time.
Yeah, nobody raised their
Uh,
hand yet. And so, yeah, they might just be listening and that's fine.
Okay. Is there any general public, anybody from the general public that would like to make a comment at this time?
And again, raise your hand at the bottom of the screen or *9 to raise your hand. And then when called on, *6 to unmute if you're on your phone. Tony, I don't see any.
Okay, thank you. That being said, then we'll close the public portion of the meeting. Does anybody on the commission have anything that they would like Thomas to dive into specifically for the next meeting?
I would like to suggest that I'm a big fan of cooperation and working together with our geographic partners. And so I'd like to suggest, in a spirit of cooperation, that we directly reach out to Wasatch County, Heber City, the JSSD, the Park Authority, and actually solicit their input. We are doing this in a public fashion and so on and so forth, but I'd like to invite them to comment. That way, if there's going to be an issue, I'd rather deal with it proactively than after the fact. But that's my thought.
That's a great idea, Jonathan. Thanks for that. We have started to reach out to a few of the entities. We started with Wasatch County and we're kind of trying to move down that list, but that's a great comment and we are doing that.
Terrific. I just think that's so important to kind of incorporate the people who might not be aware or might not be aggressive about it. If we solicit their comments, then it's kind of like speak now or forever hold your peace.
That's right. And Jan has done a great job. She has touched base with a number of the folks in those entities as well as ourselves. Yeah.
Anything else from any of the commissioners? Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the only thing that was on the agenda for this meeting.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. And it's also worth noting, Alicia reminded me that we should remind the entities, if you are listening in, that you have up to 10 days after this meeting to email any comments to Alicia at Alicia Fairborn at hideoututah.gov, AFAIRBOURNE at hideoututah.gov. So essentially that gives the public entities until the 30th if they have specific comments that they want to email to the town.
All right. That being said, then we'll close this portion of the meeting. I do have one comment for the commissioners. I would like you all to consider that we start meeting as a group while the meetings will still be closed to the public due to the current COVID situation. But I'd like for us to meet as a group for these meetings at Town Hall. I'd just like you to consider that, and we'll discuss this further at the next meeting.
Can I just, because actually by law, you need to, if you're going to have an anchor location, it has to be open to the public. So
Okay.
you can't
Thank you.
just meet without the public being able to come.
All right. Thank you,
To
Paul.
the extent that you want to get all of us together and face to face in person for the next meeting, I'm up for that.
Yeah,
So it wouldn't be the
I am too.
Jonathan.
I
It
am
would be
too.
that
Are,
But
are
we would
other,
have to know-
are other, local, area councils meeting in person now or no? Does anybody know?
I can kind of speak to that. My fellow recorders are actually all pretty surprised that we're still doing Zoom meetings only. So, but you know, I like it. So, but you know, we'll do what Tony says.
In my experience, you know, I work with 4 different towns and only one of them is meeting hybrid in person, you know, where the public can attend, but usually it's about half the council and not. So it is being done, but I think probably the majority are doing it in person. It's a matter of, you know, the location and all that and how you feel about the public safety issues.
Can it be recorded and have public input via Zoom at the in-person meeting with the commissioners?
Yeah, so the hybrid meetings that I've attended, it's required by law to be recorded. You will, and so all that happens, but it's just also on Zoom. So they set up a camera so that the public can see, or anyone who's not attending in person can see the people that are there. And then it also has a screen where the other council members, if any of the council members are attending via Zoom, you can see them and hear them. So Brighton, I think it does a pretty good job. And I think Emigration Canyon just had one, and I heard that one quite well, but I haven't, I wasn't there for that, but they've been doing it like that since the spring.
We have a feel for just how many members of the public could be accommodated in town hall. My hunch is it's a small number.
We did a HOA meeting there and we did it a hybrid sort of format. And I think we had about 20, at least 20 people in the room.
So doable.
I think the max occupancy in that room is about 30. And that is one thing that you would want to take into consideration. You know, my other recorder counterparts have larger council rooms than we do. So, you know, that's probably one of the reasons that they're all back in person.
And Alicia, would we need to explore equipment, kind of getting an OWL hybrid setup, screens? We might need to look into that, right?
Yeah, I think we did a pretty good job with the claim ADA or claim variance public hearing, how we did that kind of hybrid.
Okay.
I think that worked really well, but you know, there's always room for improvement and we might need to get additional cameras and things, but you know, we'll look into it if that's what you want to do and get it going.
Yeah.
How many are on the call tonight and is that like an average number? Like if we only have, 15 people average on a call, then.
Right now I see 16 participants on the bottom of my
Oh
screen.
yeah, that's right. I saw that too. And there were 17 at one point.
And I saw 18 at one point. So
Okay.
I think in general, it's been doable.
Mhm.
I just don't want to be in a situation where we invite members of the public we can't accommodate.
Yeah. Good thinking.
Maybe it could be something that we look at over the course of the next month. Since next meeting would be a public hearing, you might get some interested public and it could be a greater number than could be accommodated in that room. So maybe it's something we think about over the next month for the following meeting, but that's certainly up to you.
Yeah, I did not mean for this to all of a sudden take place like next month. I just wanted to put it out there for discussion so people can think about it and to see how everybody felt. I mean, this is not something I would like to initiate next month,
Okay.
just so I'm clear on that. But I think at some time it would be in the best interest for us to start meeting in person again. That being said, and I don't believe there's any other topics for discussion tonight. Would somebody like to make a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Then we'll take a vote. Glynis,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
and Tony's a yes. Thank you all. Sorry I was late. I forgot I was on the West Coast and I was off an hour. Thomas, thank you for your help. Alicia, thanks for scrolling through everything for us. And then
Yeah.
we'll see everybody on the 15th.
Great.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, well,